This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted to be joined. It's been a while, but I'm joined by former 2-weight world champion turned Hall of Famer Buddy McGirt. We're here outside of your hotel in London because I'm not allowed in. But Buddy, first and foremost, nice to see you. How you been keeping?
Great, thank you. And I want to thank you for coming this far and having me on the show.
Always a pleasure. The pleasure is all mine. I was just briefly mentioning to you off camera. I asked you off camera. You didn't have an answer for me then. I wonder if you thought about it now. When was the last time you were in the UK?
The last time I was here, I want to say it was when Isaac Chilumba fought Tony Bellew. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, not the most memorable of fights
Right.
either.
Exactly. That's probably why I forgot earlier.
So let's jump straight into it before another siren comes past. Talk to me about Derek Chisora. A lot of people, myself included, I think eyebrows were raised when you were named as the trainer for Derek Chisora for his bout with Joseph Parker. Go right back to the start. Talk to me about how it came about.
Honestly, Instagram. He called me on Instagram. He DM'd me, and for my number, I gave him my number. Then he asked me about training him. I says I like to get together and work with a week with a guy before I make any commitment, just to make sure we vibe. And he says, okay, I'll buy you a ticket in 2 weeks. So he flew me out. I stayed here a week, and here we are.
Talk to me about the first session. Derek is somebody, obviously, we know an awful lot of over here in the UK. He's an interesting character, I think is a good way to describe him. Talk to me about the initial phases of meeting him.
I got to honestly tell you, I'd met him a few years ago in California. But I got to honestly say that, he's a great guy, man. I mean, he's a wonderful dude. That's all I can say, man. If he tells you he's going to do something, he does it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And if he's not going to do something, he tells you no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But he's a great guy, man. I have no complaints at all.
How does it differ working with a big, lumbering, aggressive heavyweight like a Derek Chisora compared to some of the other fighters that you've worked with in the past? Does it change the role of a trainer dealing with a big, burly heavyweight?
No, it doesn't change the role. With a guy like him, he's been around a long time. He's got his style. There's no changing it. So I look at him, evaluate him, and see what I got to work with. I mean, I got to see how can I make this better, what he's doing. Because to try to change him, it's not going to happen. Because he's been doing it too long and he's set in his ways. So the key is to try to enhance, not try to, but enhance what he has. And try to smooth out some of the rough edges. But, we know Derek, when the bell rings, we know what he's going to do. You don't have to look for him. So the key is to enhance that.
That was one of my next questions. Obviously, Derek is kind of set in his ways. We know what to expect from him. He's a come-forward, aggressive fighter. Different from when you're getting a fighter who's in their early 20s or just turning over from the amateurs. How does that change your role as a trainer?
It really doesn't change my role. You got to go from a trainer to teacher. You know what I mean? And you got to combine it, and you got to really make him more confident in what he's doing. He's confident with it, but you got to make him more confident. You got to try to make it more effective.
What did you make of his performance against Alexander Usyk? I'm sure you would have watched that at least once since it happened. What did you make of his performance?
I'm going to be honest with you. I've never seen Derek Chisora fight, ever. The first time I seen him box was when he sparred.
Really?
Really. Never seen him fight. Heard about him, but never seen him fight.
So what was that like then? So you came over, the first time you saw him fight was when he sparred. What were your early impressions?
Well, with a nickname like War, you know what to expect. You can't expect nothing else. You just have to, sit and, when you're done training, I come back to the hotel and I evaluate, what he does, what he doesn't do. How can I make it better? How can I make slight corrections? Because you can't make nothing big. Of course, like I say, he's set in his ways.
But no, you haven't gone back and revisited any of his other fights?
Not at all.
Why is that? How does that fit in with your your coaching methods?
Because if I go back and look at his earlier fights, is when he was younger. You know what I mean? So now he's older. So that's not going to tell me anything because he might do something perfect here. I mean, not perfect, but quicker at this age. But I know at this age, you got to find a way to make it effective, even though it's not going to be as quick. So I'm not even going to look at that because I'll be, to me, playing games with myself. I got to look at what I have right in front of me right now.
And what is it you have right in front of you right now from your early observations? Well, not your early observations. Obviously, you've worked with him for a number of weeks now. What have you got in front of you now?
A guy who is going to do whatever it takes to win. So my goal is to make him do whatever it takes. So I told him the best way to win this fight is we got to mug Joseph Parker. There's no trying to sit outside and wait. we got to get him in the trenches right from the gate.
Have you watched Joseph Parker box before?
Honestly, I watched 2 rounds. No, 3, I'm lying. I watched the first 2 rounds of his last fight, and then I went like to 1, 2, then I went to round 7. And he was doing the same thing in round 7 that he did in rounds 1 and 2, which it typically happens. But, listen, he's with a new trainer. It's going to take them a while to get adjusted. He's got a good trainer. And I think that it's going to be very interesting because there's going to come a time, he's going to box, but there's going to come a time you're going to have to get in the trenches. And that's where we're going to have to do our best work.
You mentioned the new trainer. I went to see Joseph Parker and Andy Lee last week up in Stockport. Andy Lee, he said that he was looking forward to pitting his wits against Buddy McGirt, somebody of your experience. Just your thoughts on those comments.
Well, it's great, when it makes you feel good when someone, says that. I think it's going to be great because, Andy, good guy, hell of a fighter, and he's going to be a hell of a trainer because, he's an old school type of guy. Even though he's young, he's got the old school mentality.
Have you come across, I'm sure you would have come across Andy throughout your careers. Obviously, he's been based stateside predominantly as a professional.
I've never went against him as a trainer or a fighter because I'm pretty much older than him. But I've seen him a few times fight, but I've heard a whole lot about him.
And of course, was trained by somebody who knows 1 or 2 things about heavyweights, Mr. Manny Stewart. Yes. Does that play a factor into your weight? Because obviously Andy is still, while he's a very experienced or was a very experienced fighter, he's still relatively inexperienced as a trainer. Can you look into kind of who he was trained by, or do you not think about stuff like that?
When you say Manny Stewart, that's it. Nobody else matters. The key is to get him and his fighter in different parts of the ocean they haven't been in. His fighter as a fighter and him as a trainer. That's the key to this victory.
Now, in recent years, Derek has been aligned with David Haye, of course, a former opponent of his, which we're still just about getting over in the UK. How have you found working with David Haye?
It's great. I mean, David's a cool guy. I met David a while ago when I was training Matthew Macklin in Las Vegas. So, listen, it's been great. The weather's kind of crazy here, but I can honestly say they went above and beyond to make me feel at home.
We could see you back over here soon. I'm sure there's plenty of British fighters who now they're seeing Buddy McGirt setting up base over here wouldn't mind being trained by you.
Well, it'd be great, as long as it's warmer out here. It's warmer in the day, then at night it gets cold, so I got to get used to it.
Going back to the fight, obviously without over-divulging what you would have picked up in those 3 rounds, astute boxing mind to assess somebody in 3 rounds. What you expected from Joseph Parker? You mentioned you watched him box against Junior Farr. Were you impressed with his performance?
I'm going to be honest with you. I know that he's going to come out and box. I mean, the whole world knows it. You know what I mean? So, and the funny thing is, I met Joseph Parker when he was an amateur, a long time ago. Say about 5, 6, 7 years ago in New Zealand. So, and I watched him spar, and he was I thought he was a very good amateur. So I know that what he's bringing to the table. I know he's gotten better, and I know Andy Lee's trying to make that better. So, but the key, like I said, is that we got to get him in the trenches.
What's the remainder of camp looking like for Derek? Obviously, he's somebody who's very experienced. He'll probably have his own ways of wanting to go about the next couple of weeks or week and a half. What are you expecting between now and May the 1st?
The key is just to maintain where we're at right now and stay sharp until next week. Not overdo it, not underdo it. Just stay right. We're right where we want to be, and we got to stay there.
Any funny stories from training camp? There's usually 1 or 2 knocking about when Derek's concerned.
So far, nah. He always tells me you should walk back to the hotel. I said, well, the temperature should be 30 degrees hotter. If it's 30 degrees hotter, then I'll walk. But until then, I'm taking an Uber.
How have you found it being away from family? Obviously, you travel around, and you being a coveted and highly respected trainer, you're always getting calls, I would imagine, from various fighters from all around the world. But you've upped sticks. We're still kind of in the pandemic. I know it's coming to an end, but you've still had to move away from family. What's that been like for you? I
mean, it's tough. But, I'm also blessed to be working during the pandemic. So if I got to travel, I can't complain. You know what I mean? I just say I was blessed, because not too many people were working. So to get a gig like that and come way over here was great. But I'm going to be honest with you. If they didn't treat me the way they've treated me, as nice as they have and, make me feel like I'm at home, I would have left. But they've been good to me, so I really can't complain.
Obviously, without kind of looking past May the 1st, I'm sure your attentions are going to be on there, but what have you got planned for the rest of the time? Obviously, I mentioned you're always sought after, you're always getting fighters coming to train with you. What's the plan for you for the rest of this year?
Okay, the plan for me is after the fight May 2nd is to go to the airport and go home. That's my plan. I have a daughter graduating college and a daughter graduating high school when I get back, so I got to get back for that.
How does that make you feel? I mean, my daughter's only 3.5 and it already makes me feel very old. How does that make you feel? Your buddy McGirt, Hall of Famer, but you're now father of a high school graduate and a college graduate.
Listen, my son is 38. So I can honestly tell you that they're getting old, not me.
It's always the boxing that keeps you young anyway,
Exactly.
right?
Yes, hanging around the fighters keeps me young, exactly.
Obviously, all being well, and Derek Chisora comes past Joseph Parker on May the 1st. The heavyweight division is always thriving, particularly in recent years. What's the plan after that? Joseph Parker holds a lofty ranking with the WBO. I'm assuming it will be all steam ahead towards a world title shot, potentially.
Well, the plan is, after the fight, everything goes well, good Lord willing, me and Derek are going to have a barbecue bake-off because, he thinks he can barbecue better than me, and I'm telling him you can't. So I just challenged him a couple of hours ago. So after the fight, I'm going to come back, and we're going to put it on Sky Sports, and we're going to see who makes the best lamb chops.
What are you going to cook? Not lamb chops. What's your one speciality?
I just told you, lamb chops. Lamb chops and steak on the grill. You can't touch me, I'm telling you.
I don't suppose, Derek definitely won't watch this, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, no, he can watch it. I already challenged him today. I told him, I said, we're going to have he said, okay, buddy, let's do it.
What's your recipe is my next question.
I let my daughter season the meats.
That's cheating.
We said cooking, we didn't say nothing about seasoning. My daughter seasoned the meats, I do the rest.
Before we move on, and while we're still talking about the heavyweights, of course, the world is abuzz at the minute with Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury chatter. First and foremost, what a massive fight for boxing if it comes off.
Great. It's a great fight, and I got to honestly say, yesterday, I had the honor and the privilege of meeting Mr. Joshua and watching him train, and I didn't realize he was that damn big. And he's very agile for a big man. You know what I mean? And very, very nice guy, and he's a hell of a nice guy. You know what I mean? And I told him yesterday, and I'll tell him again, I want to thank him and his team for allowing me to come into their camp and watching him train.
That was going to be my next question. What was the reason for you going down there? Just invited down because he knew that you were in the area?
This guy I know that I'm working with from here, he's looking to turn pro. He told me he trains in the same gym. So I said, see if they'll let me come down. And he goes, why? I said, I want to meet Joshua. I never met him, and I would like to watch him train. And he asked, and they said, yeah, no problem. So I went down, and they had security there and everything. But they were great, man. I mean, they treated me great. The people who were in the gym training were great, and the other trainers, and I mean, they treated me really good. I mean, better than a lot of gyms I've been in.
How much experience do you have with Tyson Fury? Ever met Tyson Fury? I know he's been out in Vegas quite a lot. I don't know if you'd have ever crossed paths.
I've never met him, but I can honestly say he's a hell of a fighter. You know what I mean? And he does things that most guys as big as he does don't. And he's very effective. I mean, he's a hell of a fighter. It's going to be a hell of a fight.
You know where I'm going next, buddy. Who wins?
It depends, really. Honestly, it depends. It depends on who has the best strategy. I know people are going to say, well, no kidding. Because they both have great physical attributes. And, I see something one guy can do to make it better, and I see something another guy can do. So the key is who goes out and executes first. But the key is this: whoever wins the fight, you can't have more than one battle plan. You can't have just one. You got to have a couple of tricks up your sleeve in order to win that fight.
That's again where I was going to come on to next. We saw in Tyson Fury's last fight, admittedly it was a while ago, feels like years and years ago, before the pandemic, the Deante Wilder rematch where he came and showcased the new style. Anthony Joshua in the Ruiz rematch, as well as the Kubrat Pulev fight just before Christmas. Again, showed a different arm to what he was doing. What's the best style to fit each other, if that makes sense?
The key is that one guy has to break the other guy's rhythm. That's the key to victory, I believe. You got to break the other guy's rhythm. You can't let him get comfortable.
With what we've seen from Tyson Fury, you mentioned the fact that he moves so well on his feet. We've also seen him come and press the action against Deante Wilder. How do you beat somebody like Tyson Fury? What would be your game plan? Not necessarily for Joshua or for Joshua.
I'm not going to reveal that.
But I have to fight him again with Chisora. He's boxed him twice.
But I will say that, and I've said it, you got to break his rhythm. You can't let him, you can't let him get in his rhythm and get in his groove. He gets in his groove, you're fighting an uphill battle.
While we're hovering around the heavyweight, somebody who I've mentioned but we've not spoken about yet, Deante Wilder, still waiting for him to make his return to the ring. Again, somebody who we've not seen for an awful long time now due to the pandemic. What do you think the situation is with Deante? Do you think we can expect to see him in the ring back soon?
I think the being away, resting, and I think it did him good. And I think that he should come back now with a different frame of mind, a different attitude. And I hope he gets people in his camp that not there to train him, but to teach him. Anybody can train him, but they got to teach him. I mean, they got to teach him how to use that power in more than one way. You know what I mean? I mean, there's so many things he can do that he's not doing because he's knocking everybody out. So everyone's just going in and relying on his power. But as seen in the Tyson Fury fight, when that didn't work, what was his next solution? He had no solution. So you got to have a solution. You got to teach him how to utilize that in more than one way.
I've seen recently that he's linked up with ex-opponent and somebody I'm sure you've come across in your time in the sport, Malik Scott. What do you think to that appointment?
Well, I really can't. I mean, I know Malik personally, great guy, very nice guy. But I've never seen him as a trainer. Now, I've never seen him in the gym working with anybody. So I really can't answer. It might be a good move for him. I don't know. I've never seen Malik train guys. I've seen Malik work out. I've seen Malik fight. But I've never seen Malik actually work hands-on with a guy.
Fair enough. Moving on, one fight that I'm desperate to speak to you about, one of the two weights that you won a world title in. Of course, welterweight, I can see you getting cold. I won't keep you out for too much longer, buddy. Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. Are we ever going to see that fight, buddy?
You know, I'm hoping, but I doubt it. I mean, but I hope we do see it. But I will say this. They both better look out for Jaron Ennis. Boy's a beast, man. He's going to be the next force at 147.
What did you make of his performance last weekend against Sergey Lipinets?
I didn't see it. You know, I wasn't surprised because the guy can fight. I mean, I love Sergey, but this guy Ennis, man, he's a class above the rest of them, man, in that division. So it's going to be hard to get any of the top guys to fight him.
Yeah, I was saying this last week. I think he's going to probably have to go the similar route to Errol Spence, force himself into a mandatory position where the champion has no choice but to fight him or vacate.
And that probably still won't work. I mean, boxing could use a fight like that, either Spence or Crawford, or either Crawford or Spence against Ennis. I mean, or Keith Thurman. You know what I mean? And Manny Pacquiao. You know what I mean? But I think that right now Ennis is going to be the man at 147.
Much has been made of this era, particularly welterweights. I think welterweight being a glamour division, it kind of attracts the more scrutiny. But a lot of the talk nowadays is that they're not fighting each other. You just said yourself there, you don't expect Errol Spence to box Terence Crawford. Compared to your day, I mean, some of the legends that you faced off in the ring, Pernell Whitaker amongst a host of other names, how damaging for the sport is it not seeing that nowadays? Or is it something that maybe isn't?
I mean, lately you're starting to see better fights. So I'm hoping after this pandemic is cleared up, you can really make those fights happen.
Okay, well, before I let you go, buddy, appreciate your time sitting here freezing cold in the shade in London. It's a lovely day today, but I've put you in the coldest part of the place. I want to speak to you about Arturo Gatti. Last time I saw you was in Las Vegas before Kovalev versus Canelo. We won't go too much into that fight for you. But talk to you about Arturo Gatti. He's somebody who's still, even years after his death, revered and loved by boxing fans all over the world. What I want to know is any lasting or any specific memories from your time with Arturo?
I mean, listen, every day was an experience with him. So, I mean, I could sit here all day and tell you stories. That's what I say this. God bless him. May he rest in peace. Great man. You know, me, hell of a fighter. And it's a shame that he's gone.
What does it mean to have yourself associated with somebody like Arturo who had such great fights? I mean, the Gatti Ward trilogy, you being there and you'll always be linked to those fights. That must mean an awful lot to you as a trainer.
Oh, without a doubt, man. I mean, I believe that everything happens for a reason. You know, we hooked up at the right time. And, he came back, he became a champion again when they said he wouldn't. You know, and he had the trilogy with Mickey Warges. You know, those were 3 fights that weren't title fights, but were bigger than title fights back then. So that's a case of the best fighting the best.
Any lasting memories from that trilogy? There must be so many across the 3 fights.
The greatest thing about that trilogy was Michael Buffer. How he got the crowd into it. It gave me chills every time.
Just expand on that.
Just when he introduces, right before he says, "Let's get ready to rumble," and you could just feel the crowd, just like it's something you can't explain.
Do you soak that up more as a trainer as opposed to when you're a fighter? When you're a fighter, do you have kind of tunnel vision? Does it affect you?
As a fighter, I didn't hear shit. You know what I mean? But as a trainer, you hear it.
Okay. Well, buddy, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social.
Thank you
for coming outside and doing the interview in the cold. Always a pleasure catching up with you. Before I let you go, what can you tell fans who will be tuning in to watch Derek Chisora versus Joseph Parker on May the 1st? Come on.
Wartime. I mean, as Chisora says, wartime. And that's what it's going to be.
Okay. Buddy McGirt, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. Catch up with you soon.
Thank you for having me.